Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for being here. Please have the microphone quite close.
Okay.
Yeah.
Like that? Okay.
Great. So you are a PhD student in geography at Exeter University, and you're working on a thesis analyzing how renewable energy projects could fit or can fit into the local context. Tell us, what needs to be taken into account when it comes to acceptability of renewable projects, and more specifically, obviously, offshore wind farms?
Okay, thanks for the question. It's an important question to...
If you have do you have a slide?
I had one, I think.
Yeah,
Wait,
great. Okay, super.
So it's an important question to us today. Renewable energy projects are met with a lot of local contestations, and especially wind projects. They have received a lot of media and policy attention for that. But it's also quite an ancient question. Most big infrastructure projects have been met with sometimes intense conflicts. We've had Notre-Dame-des-Landes, which was an important episode, but we've also had that with like nuclear power plants or hydroelectric dams. However, there are some specificities which are related to the acceptability of renewable energy projects. The first one is the question of the NIMBY, not in my backyard paradigm, which has often been used to explain negative responses to renewable energy projects. So NIMBY is the idea that people are in favor of renewable energy on a general level. They think that it's good for society, but they protest it as soon as it gets too close to them, to their daily lives. However, today, most of the academic community agrees that it's a bit too simplistic a way of explaining the lack of acceptability of renewable energy projects. Acceptability is a complex question. There are a lot of factors to take into account to explain how people respond to these projects, from like overall disagreement with energy policy, distributive justice issues, lack of participation, broader social and economic issues, environmental questions. So spatial proximity to the project may matter, but so do a lot of other issues, which can be project-specific, like what's the project, how was it developed, but also context-specific. And so it's important to understand what the social, political, economic, and geographic context is like, and how the project can fit into that. Another specificity of renewable energy is the new geographies that they create. Traditional fossil fuel or nuclear landscapes, they were very centralized with long supply chains. Renewable energies, because they have low power densities and extensive spatial requirements, they change these spatial patterns. Energy production, it's no longer out of sight, no longer out of mind. Previously unaffected areas become integrated into energy production, and it becomes visible, increasingly part of our daily lives, and this may impact the relations we have to the landscape and to the places we live in. So offshore wind energy, it's a very good example of this change of paradigm. Offshore wind turbines, they are visible, they are tall landmarks into a horizon that we are used to seeing as empty or pristine. That may be especially the case in France, because a lot of our seaboards were traditionally invested by tourism and fishing, as compared to other countries such as the UK or Denmark, which had oil and gas platforms, for example. So, but even if it's not visible, our ocean is not empty, which is also a problem. It's invested by a lot of uses, which can conflict with one another, and offshore wind energy has to fit in the middle of all that. So all of these elements are important to look at to understand the acceptability of offshore wind projects. Both material aspects like land use changes, but also how people perceive and represent places such as the ocean or seaside places, how they attach values and meanings to them. Relations between people and places, they often influence local perceptions of wind projects and of whether or not they can fit in the area. But it can go both ways, like place relations, they can spur opposition to wind projects when they are perceived as like threats to local activities or local identities. But it can also lead to support, and one example which I rather like is that of a wind farm in a Scottish island, which local people saw with a sense of pride, a sign of the island's success and green image. And so they named their turbines the Three Dancing Ladies, which shows that here turbines became a part of the local identity.
Sounds great. You're also looking at French offshore wind farms, obviously. You're looking at the one off Oléron and the one off Dunkirk, and how they're perceived locally. And what have you found out so far?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So I'm doing these 2 case studies as part of my PhD. So Dunkirk in the north of France and Oléron in the South Atlantic coast. I chose these 2 places because there are a lot of differences between them. Oléron is very touristy. It's known for its maritime landscapes, its islands. There's a lot of fishing. While Dunkirk, it's a different case. Like, it's a very industrial part of France. It's also a big producer of energy with the biggest nuclear power plant in Western Europe, also a liquefied gas terminal. It was hit hard by industrial decline, but recently it's had a new dynamic around green industries. So by choosing these 2 different cases, my goal was to investigate how projects were perceived by local actors and how local characteristics influenced these perceptions. So first, let's have a quick look at the project in Oléron, so the 2 pictures at the bottom. One interesting thing is that there's no real difference in the way proponents and opponents to the project perceive the place and its characteristics. They all agree that around the economic and cultural value of fishing, the rich biodiversity, the beautiful natural landscape. The real difference lies in whether or not this is considered compatible with offshore wind energy and in the kind of transformations that are anticipated. On the side of proponents, there's the idea that the place is not inappropriate for wind energy. Compromise is possible, and the global and the national stakes of the project are so important that a local contribution is necessary. Some of them refer to the regional context with like plans for phasing out of nuclear, and some of them also make more of a connection between local transformations and the project, like they see the offshore wind energy as a catalyst for industrialization at the scale of the region, which could bring more diverse activities and independence for the region. But a lot of proponents also kind of see the project as locally neutral, like no real benefits, no real impacts, but it's good for the nation. So on the side of opponents, it's the reverse. For them, it's like the worst place for an offshore project because it's exceptional, but also very fragile. And these characteristics, along with uncertainties around the project's impacts, make the area inappropriate because the risk is just too great. The project is often pictured as an industry which could impact everything that makes this place special. And a lot of local choices that were made previously, such as like the choice of environmental protection, of a more traditional and insular way of life. So there's really a fear of losing identity without accounting for the wishes of local people. And so now let's move to Dunkirk. So the question was, like, does the industrial environment make things different? So there are a lot of similarities, but also interesting differences. For example, on the side of proponents of the project, there is more articulation between the project and the local context. The project is pictured as answering to local needs. So, for example, as a way for local fishermen to diversify their activities in the context of decline of Dunkirk fisheries. The project is also connected to a local image shift from heavy industry and pollution towards green industries and innovation, but also better quality of life. So there's really a positive local narrative in which the project has been integrated, especially by local municipalities. On the side of opponents, the location of the project, so I don't have a map here. I have one, but it's not very specific. So the location of the project east of Dunkirk, while most of the industry is located west, is considered inappropriate because it's a natural and protected area, but also, and most importantly, because it's the only natural area left in a territory that's already so saturated with industry. So there's the idea that, and also because the beach is like a local landmark where local people can go and see a bit of horizon. So there's really the idea that it's just too much, and Dunkirk has already done more than its part for the nation. So yes, and history with industry also influences mistrust about the benefits of the project. Opponents often refer to the liquefied gas terminal, which, contrarily to what was promised, did not create a lot of local employment. And they also compare the offshore wind project with the nuclear power plant, which at least is seen as creating a lot of local employment.
Right.
So, so both projects, they are debated by local actors with regards to certain ideas around what the places hosting them are, their history, but also their current and future transformations. And local dynamics are important in determining perceptions of the projects and how they can fit locally. And so adapting strategies to them is as upstream as possible can be helpful. And also what we see in the Dunkirk case is like the role of local authorities, which are in a good position to connect offshore wind projects to local issues, which is something that can spur the local acceptability of wind projects.
Fascinating. Lots of factors that one needs to take into account. Thank you very much,
Thank
Zoe.
you.
And what you just said has been summarized by my colleague Fanny.
It's such a cool drawing. Thank you.
I agree. So acceptability, this is more than complex. Not in my garden, not my backyard. And even the fish have their word, have something to say about that. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for listening.